Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of nowhere. No cities, no shade, no Starbucks. Just the sun above you like a judgmental fireball, and the ground beneath you hot enough to cook flatbread. Your mouth is dry as old parchment. Your water skin is as empty as your hope, and the only thing you've got for transportation is a camel named Tuzi who just sat down and now refuses to get up. He's chewing something. Possibly your sandal. Possibly your will to live. Ahead of you, 2,000 miles of pure uncertainty. Deserts that whisper your name like a curse. Mountains that laugh at your tiny lungs. Bandits who don't ask questions, just how much you're worth. Behind you, regret. And a city that probably already forgot your name. This isn't some exotic vacation route. This is the Silk Road. A trade network so legendary, so wild, that people crossed continents to chase fortune, glory, or sometimes just spices. But here's the thing they don't tell you in the textbooks. Most of them didn't make it. Most of them became sand snacks, ghost stories, or cautionary tales told over cheap wine. And if you're thinking, hey, I could survive it. I've watched Game of Thrones. I've got grit. Friend, no amount of binge-watching can prepare you for Mongol raids, snowstorms in July, or a caravan leader who threatens to sell you for one good pair of boots. This isn't your high school history class. This is the real Silk Road. Dusty, dangerous, and drenched in more drama than your favorite reality show. There are no knights in shining armor here. Only merchants with sharp tongues, monks with secrets, and mercenaries who sleep with one eye open. So grab your walking stick, tighten your boots, or what's left of them, and hope your tetanus shot is up to date. We're going on a journey through one of the most perilous paths in history, where dreams were traded like coin, lies were as common as lice, and death came free with the camel rental. I'll bring the stories. You bring the sunscreen, and maybe a sword. You're going to need it. You wake before dawn. The sky is the color of ash, and the cold bites at your fingers as you roll up the thin blanket you've slept under. Around you, the camp stirs slowly. Grumbling men, grunting camels, and the unmistakable hiss of a kettle boiling over a coal fire. A rough voice barks in a dialect you barely understand, probably yelling about your camel chewing someone else's stillbag again. This is your life now, part of a Silk Road caravan, somewhere between the safety of civilization and the edge of the known world. You were once a scholar's apprentice in the heart of Chang'an. You dreamed of poetry, astronomy, and dumplings, not deserts and dysentery. But when your master died of a coughing fever, you took his coin purse and chased the rumors that across the deserts, in lands where the sun sets red behind marble domes, fortunes waited for the brave or the foolish. So here you are. Your hands are cracked and blistered from leading a camel named Yuenzi who hates you. Your boots are held together by twine and optimism. And your greatest treasure? A tiny scroll tube tucked inside your tunic, filled with letters you can't read but were paid handsomely to carry west. They must be important. You've been warned 3 separate times not to let them fall into the wrong hands. The caravan master is a terrifying man named Cody. Half his face is covered in burn scars, and the other half is a scowl. No one knows where he's from, and no one asks. He wears a dagger as long as your forearm and speaks in 4 languages, all of them sharp. But he knows the routes, knows which wells are poisoned, which towns to avoid, which temples might offer shelter. Without him, you'd be a bleached skeleton on the side of the trail. Today, you march west toward the edge of the Taklamakan Desert. Its name means you go in, but you don't come out. That's comforting. You pass the ruins of an old stone stupa half swallowed by sand. A few broken prayer flags still flutter from a pole, whispering to the sky. One of the elder travelers bows as he passes and mutters a blessing. You do the same, because at this point, you'll take all the help you can get, divine or otherwise. The sun rises high. The wind begins to kick up sand, and the world starts to vanish into gold and white. You pull your scarf across your face and hold the reins tighter. Yuenzi spits angrily but keeps walking. By noon, you can barely see the person in front of you. Cody halts the caravan near a small outcrop of rock, signaling for everyone to huddle. "Storm," he growls. "Dig in." You dive behind the camels and pull your cloak tight. The wind screams like a furious ghost. Sand gets into your mouth, your ears, your thoughts. You taste the desert. It tastes like regret. Hours pass, maybe days. When the storm clears, you've lost 2 water barrels and a whole sack of dried figures. Someone else lost a boot. No one died, which means this is technically a good day. That night, huddled around a small fire made from camel dung and stubbornness, the group shares stories. There's a merchant from Samarkand with rings on every finger who swears he once saw a snow leopard steal a goat right off a child's back. A monk traveling eastward with strange scrolls speaks of cities made of jade and glass. One soldier, missing an eye and half a finger, describes the burning of Merv in such detail it makes your stomach twist. You realize something. Everyone out here is running from something, or towards something, or both. As you try to sleep, the stars overhead are impossibly clear. You stare up and think of home. You wonder if your younger brother still runs the streets chasing kites. You wonder if your mother still puts out rice cakes on the shrine for your father. You wonder if you'll ever see them again. You don't cry. There's no water to spare. The next week is a blur of agony and awe. You climb into the foothills of the Pamas. The air grows thinner with every step. Yuanzi groans louder with each breath. So do you. At night, your dreams are full of ice and memory. By day, you walk as if in a trance, placing one foot in front of the other like a mantra. You pass stone cairns and shrines, sometimes no more than a few beads and ribbons tied to a stick. Markers of gratitude, or warnings. The wind here sings differently. It howls stories. Then, you reach a pass. Below you stretches a valley so wide and green it looks like it belongs to another world. Snowmelt sparkles in distant rivers. Yurts dot the plains like little moons. And rising far beyond, the mountains seem to pierce the sky itself. You descend slowly, carefully. Coddy warns of landslides, and you believe him. At one bend in the trail, you see the remains of another caravan. Bones, shattered pottery, and a wheel half buried in the earth. Someone mumbles a prayer. You do, too. In the valley, the caravan stops at a summer trading camp. You smell milk tea before you see the fires. Locals greet you cautiously, then warmly once gifts and greetings are exchanged. You share dried fish and salted plums. They offer yak cheese, horse sausage, and fermented mare's milk. You learn new words, new games. A girl with wind-chapped cheeks teaches you how to spin wool. An old man traces constellations into the dirt and says they guard travelers who listen. That night, you trade stories around the fire. You talk of the Emperor's City, the lantern festivals, the sweet cakes shaped like flowers. They listen like you're describing another planet. You fall asleep full for the first time in weeks. But comfort is a luxury the Silk Road does not offer for long. The Silk Road wasn't a single road. It was a chaotic, ever-shifting tangle of trade routes that spanned more than 7,000 kilometers from China to the Mediterranean. The land routes alone twisted through deserts, grasslands, steppes, mountain ranges, and war zones. It was less a road and more a web of opportunity, exploitation, and existential risk. It began in earnest during the Han Dynasty around the 2nd century BCE, as Chinese emperors looked west to forge alliances and expand trade. But in truth, the routes already existed, used by nomads and local traders long before China put it on the map. What the Han did was formalize it, militarize it, tax it. Silk, of course, was the headliner. At its height, Chinese silk was so valuable that Roman aristocrats would pay its weight in gold. But along with silk came spices from India, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, amber from the Baltics, wool and glass from Rome, ivory from Africa, and paper and gunpowder from China. Ideas moved, too: Buddhism, Islam, Nestorian Christianity, Zoroastrianism. It was one of the first highways for belief. But not all the travelers were voluntary. Enslaved people were sold from one empire to the next, along with war captives, dancers, and scribes. There were no safe zones, only temporarily less dangerous ones. Disease also traveled freely. The Silk Road is a suspected vector for the spread of plagues, including the Justinian plague and, centuries later, the Black Death. When you're traveling in caravans with open wounds, shared food, and questionable hygiene, it's less if you get sick and more when. The Taklamakan Desert, which you're currently attempting to cross, is a brutal reminder of the Silk Road's darker reputation. It devours the unprepared. Sandstorms appear without warning. Temperatures swing from boiling during the day to deathly freezing at night. Countless travelers vanished here. Some bodies have even been found mummified, perfectly preserved, as if the desert wanted to keep a guest book. Bandits were another feature, not a bug, of the Silk Road. From the steppes of Central Asia to the mountain passes of Persia, they operated like small armies. Some worked alone. Others were backed by warlords or corrupt officials. And if you were carrying something valuable, say, a small scroll tube filled with diplomatic secrets, you were a walking bullseye. Even the cities, as glittering as they were, carried their own risks. Places like Samarkand, Kasha, and Baghdad were hubs of knowledge and culture. But they were also political powder kegs. Empires rose and fell overnight. One year you're welcomed as a trader, the next you're jailed as a spy. So no, this wasn't a glamorous merchant cruise. It was a gamble. And for most, the Silk Road didn't end with gold. It ended with bones in the sand. And you're only halfway through. So let's talk about the route you're taking. Because make no mistake, this isn't just a long walk. This is a trial by earth, wind, fire, and, well, mostly sand. You started in Chang'an, the glittering capital of the Han Dynasty. It's the kind of city where gold-lacquered gates open for diplomats, and hawkers shout poetry while selling dumplings the size of your fist. Bureaucrats in flowing robes argue about taxes while you try not to get trampled by the morning tea crowd. Chang'an is civilization in a bowl. Rich, spicy, slightly corrupt, and addictive. But you didn't stay. You joined a caravan headed west, because money, or destiny, or maybe just a really bad sense of judgment. Your first stretch is the Gansu Corridor, a narrow strip of habitable land between the Tibetan Plateau and the Gobi Desert. It's like walking a tightrope with death on either side. You hug the Great Wall for safety, because raiders from the north don't play games. The wall is crumbling in places, but it's still better than walking blind into an ambush from horsemen who can shoot arrows while doing backflips off their saddles. The land here is rough but alive. You pass ancient watchtowers, herds of goats, and shrines so old their names have been forgotten. You sleep in dusty forts and crowded inns where the soup is hot and the beds are questionably alive. You're grateful for both. Then you reach the nightmare fuel that is the Taklamakan Desert, nicknamed the Sea of Death, which feels less like a metaphor and more like a Yelp review from the afterlife. It's one of the largest shifting sand deserts in the world. No rivers, no shade, just dunes as far as the soul can sigh. There are only two paths, north or south. You don't cross the middle unless you've got a death wish or divine intervention. You pick the southern route, which is marginally less fatal, according to Cody. Comforting. This part is slow, brutal. Days blur into each other. The sun flays your skin by day, and the cold gnaws your bones by night. One of your fellow travelers loses his mind in the heat and starts talking to a scorpion like it's his long-lost wife. Another collapses from heat stroke and doesn't get back up. His body is buried shallow, with stones over the face to keep scavengers away. You wonder what your obituary would say. Died of ambition and poor footwear. Eventually, miraculously, you reach Kasha. The city is a mirage that doesn't vanish. It's real, bustling, noisy, alive. It smells of cumin, sweat, horse dung, and sweet melon. You pass mosques, caravansaries, and markets that overflow with turquoise, porcelain, and stolen dreams. Here, you trade what little you have for warm bread and dried apricots. You refill your water. You wash your face. You feel human again, for a moment. But the worst isn't over. Not even close. From Kasha, you begin your ascent into the Pamir Mountains, known as the roof of the world. If the desert tried to cook you, the Pamirs are here to freeze you solid. The passes reach over 20,000 feet, and the air is so thin it feels like trying to breathe through a soaked rag. Your caravan winds up narrow trails that crumble with each step. One of the camels slips on ice and falls into a ravine. You don't look. You don't speak. You just walk. Nights are deathly quiet, except for the howling wind and the crunch of frost forming inside your boots. You lose sensation in your fingers, then your nose, then your hope. But if you survive the Pamas, you're rewarded with a glimpse of the Fergana Valley. Lush, green, absurdly beautiful. You pass flocks of wild horses and settlements with domed tents. Here, people live hard lives with open arms. A herdsman gives you fermented mare's milk that tastes like vinegar and wet goat. You drink it. You smile. You survive. Then comes Samarkand, the city of blue domes, golden mosaics, and rumor. It's a crossroads of empire and myth. Alexander the Great once passed through here. So did Genghis Khan, but he burned it down for kicks. In Samarkand, you finally hear the languages of the West: Greek, Persian, Latin. You trade silk for spices, buy a new pair of boots that almost fit, and hear a bard sing a song about a traveler who carried the moon in his pocket. You wonder if it's you. You press on through the empires of Persia, through Baghdad, shimmering like a mirage of knowledge and corruption. Scholars argue in libraries while beggars beg outside their doors. You walk quietly. You don't want attention. Attention gets you killed. Eventually, you see the Bosporus, the bridge between East and West, and in the distance, Constantinople, the legendary city, where silk fetches its weight in gold, and your scroll, yes, that scroll, has finally reached the end of its road. You've walked over 4,000 miles, from one world to another. You're not the same person who left Chang'an. Your eyes are sharper. Your skin is leather. Your soul is complicated. You made it, but just barely. And most never did. So no, the Silk Road wasn't some romantic ancient adventure with incense and intrigue. It was a grinding, gasping, perilous maze of misery where survival was a privilege, not a guarantee. By now, you've probably realized, walking the Silk Road isn't for the soft. But maybe you're thinking, surely, I'm not walking the entire way. And you're right, kind of. You've got a ride. Just not the majestic steed of your romanticized imagination. No noble horse galloping across the steppe with your cloak billowing behind you like you're starring in some imperial drama. Nope. Your noble steed is a Bactrian camel. A shaggy, snorting, flatulent beast with 2 humps, a bad attitude, and a face that looks permanently unimpressed by your existence. But don't let the grumpiness fool you. This creature is an absolute survival machine. Where a horse would collapse in the heat or freeze in the mountains, a Bactrian camel just squints at the elements and keeps moving like it's judging your weakness. They can survive for days without water, plod through snow or sand, and carry upwards of 500 pounds without collapsing in a diva fit. Think of it as a prehistoric, all-terrain SUV, powered by stubbornness and spite. But riding one? Oh, friend, it's not the luxury cruise you hoped for. Straddling a camel for hundreds of miles is like sitting on a hairy, swaying bookshelf that occasionally sneezes on you. The saddle, if you're lucky enough to have one, is made of wood and leather. There's no cushion, no backrest, just a constant battle to stay upright while the camel lurches like it's walking on a tightrope during an earthquake. By the end of day 1, your legs are numb, your spine is rearranged, and your rear end feels like it's been used as target practice by an angry god. And that's on the easy terrain. Let's get one thing clear. There are no paved roads out here. You're not strolling down cobblestone boulevards lined with food stalls and fortune tellers. You're grinding your way through dusty trails, icy cliff passes, and river crossings that laugh in the face of your boots and optimism. Maps? They're more like polite guesses. You follow the tracks of caravans that came before, if the wind hasn't erased them. You rely on local guides, half-remembered stories, and whatever stars you can see through the dust storms. If you're lucky, you'll find a marker, a pile of stones, a half-buried shrine, maybe the bleached ribcage of a long-dead mule. Need a rest stop? Forget it. Every few days, if the gods are kind and Coddy isn't lying through his teeth, you'll stumble upon a caravanserai. These are medieval roadside inns scattered like lighthouses along the trade routes. Usually a square stone compound with a central courtyard and stables, They're designed to shelter travelers and animals alike from bandits, cold, or the ever-present sandstorms. But don't get excited. These places aren't exactly Hilton suites. You're sharing a dark room with 12 strangers, 3 goats, a chicken that may or may not be possessed, and a single fire pit you all crowd around for warmth. The floor is dirt, the blankets smell like wet fur, and there's always someone coughing like they're trying to exorcise a demon. Still, compared to sleeping in the open, it's paradise. Unless, of course, the caravanserai is a trap. Bandits have been known to pose as innkeepers, welcoming tired travelers with warm stew and a smile, before robbing and slitting throats while they sleep. That's why Cody never lets the whole caravan rest at once. Someone always keeps watch. And you? You sleep with one eye open and your knife tucked under your belt. After weeks of riding, walking, freezing, baking, and bargaining with both gods and camels, the journey starts to break people. You've seen it already. One merchant just stopped walking outside Turpin, sat down in the sand, smiled at the sky, and said he wanted to talk to his mother. He was from Alexandria. Hadn't seen home in a decade. You never saw him again. Another man lost his hearing during a rockslide in the Pamas. He now walks slightly ahead of the group, muttering to himself, humming a lullaby no one else recognizes. And you? You're changing, too. Your skin is calloused. Your ribs are showing. Your hands are cracked open from cold and camel harnesses. But you can look at the stars and tell the hour. You know how to find edible roots in rocky soil. You know what the buzz of flies means, and it's never good. You're not soft anymore. Despite all this, there's a strange beauty in the suffering. You've shared firelight and fermented yak milk with strangers who've seen empires fall. You've heard jokes in 4 languages. You've watched men from opposing faiths kneel beside the same shrine, begging for the same mercy. There's a bond here, one forged not by friendship but by mutual survival. You're all members of an elite, miserable club, people who didn't die yet on the Silk Road. Even Uenzi, your angry camel, starts to tolerate you. You give him dried apricots. He lets you rest your head against his neck on the coldest nights. Sometimes, you swear he winks at you. Or maybe he's just plotting. Hard to say. But you know this. There is no Silk Road without beasts like him. Or people like you. Hardened, half-broken, but moving forward. You're halfway through the mountains when the fever hits. It starts with a cough, then chills, and then the feeling that your bones are trying to crawl out of your skin. You're not alone. 3 others in the caravan are sick too. Cody grumbles something about mountain ghosts and makes everyone sleep farther apart that night. You're at nearly 15,000 feet. The air is so thin that even breathing feels like punishment. Your nose bleeds constantly. Your vision flickers like a faulty lantern. At one point, you think you see a golden temple floating on a cloud, but it's just your camel's rear end. This is the Pamu Pass. Locals call it the roof of the world. You call it a nightmare made of rocks, ice, and broken dreams. The wind here doesn't just blow, it screams. One wrong step and you could tumble into a gorge so deep it might spit you out in another lifetime. You wrap every inch of skin in wool and silk, but it's not enough. You can feel your body giving up. Even Uenzi, your surly camel, walks slower, his breath steaming in the thin air like a dying fire. And then you see footprints. They aren't yours, or Cody's, or anyone's in your caravan. They are fresh. You freeze and put your hand on your dagger. Cody sees them too. He crouches down, presses 2 fingers into the prints, then draws his blade. Bandits, he says flatly. Suddenly, every sound becomes a threat. The snap of a twig, the shift of snow, even the wind. The caravan moves faster and tighter. You take turns keeping watch through the night, eyes wide, hands on weapons, ears straining against the howling dark. They don't attack, at least not this time. Maybe they were watching. Maybe they decided you weren't worth it. Or maybe they're saving you for later. You don't sleep that night. No one does. Eventually, you descend into a valley that smells like firewood and yak dung. You've arrived in Khotan, a town known for its jade and Buddhist monasteries. Finally, civilization. But civilized doesn't mean safe. The guards at the city gate eye you like you owe them money. One of them says something in a tongue you don't know. Cody responds calmly, in perfect dialect. Coins change hands. You're let in. Inside the city, the streets are alive with silk banners, food stalls, and prayers echoing from temple towers. You're drawn to music, flutes, drums, and laughter. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then a drunk merchant shoulder checks you and calls you a northern rat. You smile and nod, not understanding the insult until Cody pulls you aside. Don't respond, he says. That man's brother is a magistrate. If you get dragged into a fight, we're not buying you out of jail. Turns out, you don't just need to survive the land, you have to survive the people. Some cities are melting pots. Others are powder kegs. You could get stabbed for using the wrong hand to eat, or for speaking Persian in a Turkic market, or for wearing red on a holiday you've never heard of. Cody teaches you quickly. Never show more wealth than you can defend. Never sleep in the same place 2 nights in a row. Always pay the beggars, because some of them work for local bosses who'll remember your face. You're thinner now, sharper. You've stopped noticing the stink of the camels. Your hands are calloused. You've picked up words in half a dozen languages, enough to haggle, lie, or flirt your way out of trouble. You're no longer just a courier. You're something else. Something harder. But the Silk Road keeps testing you. A flash flood sweeps away 1/3 of your supplies in the Zarafshan Valley. A fever kills 2 porters before you reach Bukhara. And in the outskirts of Merv, you see the aftermath of a siege. Charred walls, smashed pottery, bones half buried in the dirt. No one speaks as you pass. Cody spits on the ground and mutters, "Empire eats empire. Keep walking." And you do. In the hills west of Samarkand, the bandits finally come. 5 riders, faces covered, blades drawn, horses fast. There's no time to run. Cody yells something in a tongue you've never heard, and suddenly your caravan is a formation. Shields up, blades drawn, camels crouched low. You draw your dagger, which now looks very, very small. The fight is quick and brutal. One of the riders tumbles from his horse, clutching a stomach that's no longer where it should be. Another disappears into the hills, bleeding from the face. One of your fellow traders, a boy no older than your brother, lies still on the ground. You don't check if he's breathing. You already know. The survivors strip the dead of weapons, boots, and jewelry. There's no room for dignity on the Silk Road. That night, you reach a caravanserai, an outpost with thick walls and a single heavy door. It's one of the good ones. A roof, a well, maybe even stew. Inside, you share a fire with Armenian fur traders, a Syrian physician, and a Mongolian blacksmith who claims he forged swords for a Khan. You drink boiled wine that tastes like vinegar and listen to music played on a bowed string instrument that sounds like it's weeping. This is what safety looks like: mud, firelight, and strangers. You sleep with your scroll tube strapped to your chest, just in case. The next week brings more punishment. You leave the relative comfort of Herat and head toward the Dashti Kavir, Iran's Great Salt Desert. Nothing lives here. The wind cuts like knives. The sun reflects off the salt flats so brightly that some people go temporarily blind. You wrap silk around your face and eyes and hope for the best. Your lips crack open. Your skin peels. Your camel collapses, and you're forced to walk. By the end of the week, your water skin is empty. Your shoes are shredded, and you've started talking to rocks. Cody finally calls a stop beneath a withered tree. "This is a good omen," he says. You look at the tree. It looks like death wearing a hat. Cody shrugs. Could be worse. Could be raining scorpions. And yet, you keep going. The Silk Road isn't about logic. It's about will. People kept traveling it for centuries, despite the dangers, despite the bodies, despite the fact that you could vanish into the mountains and never be seen again. Because the prize was worth it. Wealth, knowledge, glory, or maybe just the promise of a better life waiting on the other side of the world. So you get up. You shoulder your pack. You help a groaning Uenzi to his feet. And you keep walking. Constantinople still lies ahead. But so do a dozen more deserts. a dozen more towns with hard stares and harder laws, and a dozen more moments when you'll wonder why you ever thought this was a good idea. But it's too late now. You're part of the road. And the road doesn't let go. Absolutely. Let's continue our immersive journey along the Silk Road, focusing on the rapid exchange of ideas and the pivotal roles women played in this vast network. Here's an extended narrative, approximately 1,000 words, weaving these elements into our story. As you traverse the rugged terrains and bustling markets of the Silk Road, you begin to realize that the most valuable commodities aren't always tangible. Ideas, innovations, and knowledge flow along these routes with a momentum that rivals the fastest caravans. In the oasis city of Samarkand, you encounter a Persian scholar who introduces you to a revolutionary concept, algebra. He explains how this mathematical system can solve complex problems, from calculating trade profits to predicting celestial events. Intrigued, you spend evenings under the stars, learning the intricacies of this new discipline. Further along, in the bustling markets of Kasha, a Chinese monk shares with you the secrets of paper-making. He demonstrates how mulberry bark and other plant fibers are transformed into smooth sheets, perfect for writing. This innovation, he claims, will one day replace cumbersome scrolls and revolutionize record-keeping across civilizations. In a caravanserai near Bukhara, you meet an Indian physician who introduces you to advanced medical practices. He teaches you about herbal remedies, surgical techniques, and the importance of hygiene, knowledge that could mean the difference between life and death on the treacherous journey ahead. But it's not just groundbreaking ideas that travel these routes. Rumors, superstitions, and misinformation spread just as rapidly. In a tavern in Merv, you hear tales of mythical creatures guarding mountain passes and cursed relics that bring misfortune. While some dismiss these stories as mere folklore, others take them to heart, altering their routes and behaviors based on hearsay. Amidst this exchange of knowledge and tales, you begin to notice the subtle yet significant presence of women in the Silk Road's tapestry. In the silk workshops of Dunhuang, women meticulously weave intricate patterns, their expertise ensuring the high quality of the coveted fabric. Their skills are passed down through generations, preserving techniques that are essential to the trade's success. At various inns and marketplaces, women manage operations with keen business acumen. They negotiate deals, manage inventories, and ensure that travelers are well-fed and rested. Their roles are crucial, yet often overlooked in the grand narratives of trade and conquest. One evening, in the city of Chang'an, you hear whispers of Empress Wu Zetian, China's only female emperor. Her reign, marked by significant political and cultural advancements, challenged the traditional Confucian norms that limited women's roles in society. Under her leadership, Buddhism flourished, and the arts and sciences received unprecedented support. Her story inspires many, especially women who see in her a symbol of empowerment and possibility. As you continue your journey, you encounter women from diverse backgrounds, Persian artisans, Central Asian traders, and nomadic healers, each contributing uniquely to the Silk Road's vibrant mosaic. Their stories, skills, and resilience underscore the indispensable roles women play in this vast network. Reflecting on your experiences, you realize that the Silk Road is more than a trade route. It's a conduit for human connection, where ideas transcend borders and individuals, regardless of gender, shape the course of history. The knowledge you've gained and the people you've met have transformed you, leaving an indelible mark on your journey and your understanding of the world. Once upon a time, the Silk Road was the ultimate highway of hustle and bustle. Imagine giant trade cities packed with colors, spices, noise, and deals being made in a dozen different languages. Merchants haggled, camels groaned, and storytellers spun wild tales. But over time, many of these amazing cities vanished. Some got swallowed by deserts, some crumbled from earthquakes, and some just ghosted history like a bad date. Let's talk about Naya. It was a desert oasis on the edge of the Taklamakan Desert. Back in the day, it was the place to stop if you wanted to survive the heat and sandstorms. Caravans chilled there, shared gossip, and traded goods. Archaeologists found coins, ancient letters, silk, and even noodles that somehow survived 1,500 years. Yes, someone left their lunch behind, and now it's in a museum. Then there was Merv. This city was a total rock star in Central Asia, in what is now Turkmenistan. It had libraries, mosques, markets, and probably the best kebabs in the region. It was once one of the biggest cities on Earth. But then the Mongols showed up, and let's just say, it didn't go well for Merv. They wrecked it so hard that it never recovered. Ouch! And don't forget Gaochang. Near modern-day Turpan, Gaochang was like the Silk Road's social mixer. It had Han Chinese, Sogdians, Uyghurs, all living and trading together. There were temples, palaces, and big city vibes. But as trade routes shifted and politics got messy, Gaochang slowly faded into the background like an old playlist. Today, walking along the Silk Road, you won't see busy streets or markets anymore. You'll find broken walls, crumbling domes, and maybe a lonely jug or two. But these ruins still whisper stories of a world once full of life and trade. So what happened? What turned this superhighway into a ghost town? First, ships. Sea travel got way cooler, faster, and a whole lot less stabby. One ship could carry more than a herd of camels, and no sand in your shoes. So merchants said, CYA, deserts, and sailed off instead. Then came drama. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 messed up trade routes. The Ottomans charged sky-high taxes. Europe said, no thanks, and started looking for other ways to reach Asia. Also, the Mongol Empire broke apart, so no more Silk Road security team. More bandits, more chaos, less trade. Oh, and then the Black Death showed up. Yeah, that plague thing. People dropped like flies across Asia and Europe. Trade froze, and nobody wanted to share germs, or anything else. On top of that, climate changes made deserts even more annoying. Water sources dried up, and entire routes became impossible. Even the camels were like, nope, we're out. By the 1400s, the Silk Road wasn't officially closed. It just ghosted. People stopped using it. Cities faded. The desert moved in and took over. The once great highway became a dusty legend. But here's the twist. Its legacy is still with us. The Silk Road wasn't just about silk and spices. It moved ideas, religions, and inventions. Buddhism spread through Asia thanks to this route. So did Islamic art and architecture. People shared music, food, fashion, and wild stories. It also carried brainy stuff, like papermaking, printing, and the compass. Yes, that thing that helped people stop getting lost at sea. Even science and medicine crossed borders thanks to the Silk Road. And women played a big part too. They weren't always crossing deserts, but they ran shops, made silk, and helped the whole thing run smoothly behind the scenes. Without them, the Silk Road would have been just a bunch of smelly guys with camels and no fabric to sell. Today, people are trying to bring back the Silk Road spirit. China's Belt and Road Project is one modern version. It's all about trading, building, and connecting again, just without the camels and sandstorms. So even though the old Silk Road is quiet now, its impact never really ended. It changed the world. It linked cultures, and it proved that humans have always loved to travel, trade, and tell stories. The road may be gone, but the journey, that's still going strong. So, the Silk Road is toast. The camels have clocked out. The merchants have gone home. The bandits probably got new jobs in piracy. But what's left behind? Oh, just the entire blueprint for how the modern world works. Seriously, the Silk Road didn't just carry silk and spices, it carried civilization itself. It was like the original Wi-Fi network, connecting people across continents long before the internet was even a weird dream in someone's brain. Imagine if Google Maps, Amazon Prime, TED Talks, and a buffet all merged into one 4,000-mile stretch of dusty trail. That was the Silk Road. One of the biggest gifts it left us? Cultural mashups. We're talking fusion food, hybrid languages, shared stories, and the beginnings of global fashion trends. Ever wonder how paisley prints got to Europe? Spoiler, they didn't just poof into existence during the Renaissance. They were rocking the Silk Road centuries before it was cool. Art styles traveled too. Chinese dragons made it into Persian rugs. while Greco-Roman statues started showing up in Buddhist temples. It was like a massive Pinterest board where everyone was pinning ideas from each other, in real life. And the food? Let's give a moment of silence for the humble noodle, which may have slithered its way from China to Italy and turned into spaghetti. That's right, your comforting bowl of pasta could have started its journey in a Silk Road stillbag. Legend. Then there's the alphabet soup. Literally, writing systems, philosophies, religions, all bounced around like postcards in a giant cultural blender. Buddhism spread east, Islam traveled west, and a whole lot of folks got wiser, one dusty scroll at a time. Even the idea of how we do trade, banks, credit systems, standardized coins, all of that was beta tested on the Silk Road. Merchants were basically the first business bros with portfolios, and they were out there making deals, dodging bandits, and inventing international finance with a camel and a dream. So yeah, the Silk Road faded into dust. But it left behind something bigger, a connected world. A tangled, vibrant, beautiful web of shared humanity that reminds us we've been global for a lot longer than Instagram's been telling us we are. So next time you're sipping tea, using spices, or typing on your imported tech, think about the roads that came before us. Think about the empires and the empresses, the camels and the cooks, the monks and the murderers. And if you enjoyed this journey, hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot more stories to travel together, without the blisters and bandits. Thanks for wandering with me. I'll see you on the next trail.